In the Duke UConn preview video, we told you it was going to be a rock fight and pretty ugly, but my God, I didn't think it'd be that ugly. What an ugly game, but for UConn fans, any win is a beautiful win. So, in the end, I guess it was a ugly, beautiful win. Before we start, if you like the content, then please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Summed up in a nutshell, UConn had Paige Beckers and Aaliyah Edwards, and Duke did not have that. They had a bunch of really good players that do a lot of good things and can play good defense for the most part, but essentially their goose was cooked when Regan Richards could not get off and get points efficiently, as she went 5 for 15 for 10 points. If you look at the box score, Duke actually won the three-point contest, if you like. They got 4 3-pointers on 19 attempts versus UConn's 3 on 16. But let's face it, it's just both brutally bad. They didn't really crush UConn in that, and then they were just a turnover machine. It was ridiculous how many times Duke turned over the ball. It was 23 times versus 13 times for UConn. And this resulted in terrible point production for Duke, as they only had 13 points at halftime. They didn't cross the 20-point mark until 2:30 remaining in the third quarter. I would need to go back and look at the LSU-Miami game, but I assume that was worse offense than was in that game. Now, what is disappointing for UConn fans is they really were not able to take advantage of that. Even with that poor play, they never got a staggering lead or put them away. With 1:56 remaining in the game, Duke had cut down what was at one point a 20-point deficit to only 5 points. That being said, I don't know about you. I'd be curious your comments. Even when it was a 5-point game, I really wasn't that nervous for UConn, as I really could not see the threat from Duke, essentially. So it's like, they're going to try to give the game away, but really I thought they would control it and finish it off. Versus Syracuse, it was like, is Deasia Fair going to get them or not? You're more worried about her than anybody that Duke had, and that's essentially it. UConn probably would have had better luck putting away Duke if Aaliyah Edwards hadn't picked up her 4th foul with 4:08 in the third quarter, which required her to sit for way too long. UConn's scoring basically came from Edwards, who was 6 for 7 for 12 points. Obviously, her points were limited by the foul trouble. And then Paige Beckers got 24, and she was efficient as always. So she went 9 for 21. KK chipped in for a valuable 12. It wasn't real efficient, as she went 5 for 15, but it's points that they needed. And then they only got 5 other points from other players. So Ice Brady chipped in 2, and Nika Mule had 3. Duke did something interesting early in the game. They decided to put Jaden Donovan on KK. I think they might have thought, we'll get height on her and maybe throw her off. I didn't really understand that. And then when they took her off, they also put Delaney Thomas, who is 6'3", on her. And I thought, if anything, that sort of got KK going because she could take her off the dribble. Like, there was one play where Thomas got a nice block on KK. But overall, I thought it allowed KK to get to the basket easier and get her confidence up. But in truth, whatever they did, I really can't call out Duke's defense, because that really kept him in the game, because it sure as heck was not their offense. Ashlyn Jackson was on Ashlyn's shade, and I think Jackson's length caused Shade some difficulty, which is why she was 0 for 4, and she just struggled to get off. But lucky for UConn, they were able to get something out of KK. It wasn't efficient, but it was needed points. Those 12 points just really help. You need a third person, and that's going to be the ongoing scenario moving forward. The other big mismatch that UConn had and took advantage of, Aaliyah Edwards was so efficient, 6 for 7, and she was just more athletic than Kennedy Brown. And she could get anything she wanted. If Kennedy came out on Edwards, Edwards would go around her, essentially. If she stood off her, Edwards was able to bury the jumper early on, which is always helpful for Edwards and gets her confidence up and just makes her deadly. If she buries those early jumpers, then she's in for usually a good day. The foul trouble that Edwards got in just reminds you of what a skeleton crew that they have, and that they're just so vulnerable and have no margin for error. There was also a heart-stopping moment where Edwards went to the floor and grabbed her knee. I was like, oh no, don't let it be the ACL. But thankfully, she got up and was fine. I mean, that's one of my big hopes, that nobody gets injured in the tournament, as a tournament injury is just so devastating for any player, as they'll be out, especially in ACL, as they'll be out for 12 months. They'll miss the following season, like Olivia Miles. Now, I said it after UConn beat Syracuse that it's all gravy from there. They go off to Portland and take their chance, and they've done that, making it to the Elite Eight. Again, they're eating cake now with the icing on it. It's so much house money that they are playing in, and I really don't have much hope for them beating USC. Now, I went to DraftKings, and actually UConn is -3, so they're the favorite in the game. And maybe I'm just being pessimistic, but my concern with USC is just they are so big. If you look at USC, so Juju's 6'2", Forbes is 6 foot, Rhea Marshall, who's the center, will battle Edwards and can play Edwards tough. Like that'll be a tough matchup for Edwards. And then they have Padilla, that's their small guard that can shoot at 5'9", and then Caitlin Davis, who is also 6 foot. And I just think those are going to be tough matchups for Ashlyn Shade and KK and Nika. Like one of them is going to have somebody big and draped on them, and I think they'll struggle to get their shots off. I don't think Marshall is going to be efficient. I assume Juju's going to be guarding Paige Beckers, and I'm all for that. I want to see that matchup. Or no, I'm probably wrong. I think they'll probably put Mackenzie Forbes on her because they'll let her eat up the fouls and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a real tough matchup where with USC, and I bet Lindsay Gottlieb's just going to put them in pick and roll all day long, just trying to get Juju on either KK or Ashlyn Shade or anybody, and just taking them to the elbow and getting the comfortable shots that she likes to get. I really hope in this game that Gino puts Paige Beckers on Juju, as I'd love to see that matchup. And I love the idea of Gino saying, all right, you're the best player in the country. Now go shut her down and show everybody why you are the best player. Go do it. And that's the big hope for UConn, is that Paige Beckers goes off and just goes full-on superstar, and they get enough from everybody else, essentially. As I've said in a number of videos, if you have Paige Beckers, you have a chance. But in this game against USC, I believe she needs to be super, super, supernova and just be sensational for them to have a chance. Because I think Aaliyah Edwards is going to have her hands full with Rhea Marshall. And you are going to need Paige Beckers to do it on both sides of the court. On defense, using her length, like she's their biggest guard, to give problems for Juju Watkins. And then on offense, obviously carry them, and hopefully somebody comes along with her. But again, it's all gravy. To get this far with that lineup and all the injuries they have is unbelievable. And that they're on the precipice of a Final Four is truly unbelievable, and I think a sensational coaching job. Good night.